Welcome, welcome. One of the biggest trends for spring is that wrap top. That wrap top, classic, Diane von Furstenberg, so many years ago, but it is classic, and you can search for almost any designer spring wrap top and it will come up with very high price. So I decided to do a little segment on things that variables, fun little variables. So I want to first take a couple pictures and let you look at them, and you can see where they're done in wovens, they're done with bows wrapped around, they're wrapped all the way to the side or to the princess seam. They're wrapped different amounts, but virtually all these photos are pretty much the same thing. So I started with a base of 650. It's our no gap wrap. And the reason I started with that base is because it wraps so beautifully. Anytime you try to wrap past the bust line or the princess seam line, it gets harder for it to not gap because it's going around obstacles that sometimes just fabric can't go around without corrective darts. So the princess seam works really well in the wrap. I've got it on what I did. But the last photo that I showed you, those little soft gathers, I loved that. But I didn't like that many gathers. I actually tried that on and I just didn't care for it. On me, I just didn't care for it. But a few gathers I really liked. So step one, I'm gonna show you how to add the gathers. And you probably know most of this, but I'm just gonna go through it. And then step two, I'm gonna show you how to sew where we've eliminated the collar. The collar in this pattern is the finishing neck edge. That's what finishes off the neck edge and it opens up. And I love that. I just wanted to do it in a knit and I didn't want to change it up. I used 2 yards of fabric, and this particular fabric is 5371. 5371, I used 2 yards. It's 100% cotton, and you know, as I sew more and more, the feel is as important to me as the look. I want it to feel good on because I've got long days and I just want to throw it on in the morning and know that it'll look good the rest of the day, and I've got it. So, all right, so the first pieces we're going to cut are we're going to cut the back and the side back. We're not going to do any changes to those, except because I'm doing it in a knit, I'm going to use my armhole templates and I'm going to put a knit sleeve because this base is woven. Okay, so just a heads up, and then I'm using my knit sleeve. Okay, then the front, because one side is not gathered, I'm cutting one side and a facing the same, except again, correct your armhole. But because the other side I've added gathers, now I've taken away this neckline, I've taken away the collar. It comes up and a collar goes on. I want it to be more V-neck, so I just turn that back, use your French curve, draw a nice little neckline that connects this point to the front, not to the literally the front, but to the, you know, where you've just got a gradual takeaway. You'll do that on both your front and your front facing, and then you're ready to go ahead and add your gathers. So I'm going to show you, this is the original piece, and this is where I've added the gathers. And you can see I've added them through here, and so it throws this top back this way, which is no big deal. It's just I'm making room for those gathers. The gathers can't just be on this piece, because if they are, they'll be gathered and then they'll just stop all right here and it will just look silly. They need to extend through the side piece. So you'll see that this is my original side piece, and then this is the piece I created. And again, you can see how it's thrown off that direction. And so where those gathers are added, because it's going to be gathered back up. So my thinking was I didn't want a lot of gathers, so I only added 3 places I cut. It doesn't really matter what you cut to, just go to the other side. Go up, don't go across, or your gathers will go across your tummy. Go up a little bit and put your points over here. So I started here and went up. I added an inch, an inch, and an inch. But then right here, it's still a 1/4 inch. So on this piece, I continued with a 1/4 inch to nothing. And that 1/4 inch, all it was is a graduation of the inch to nothing. It doesn't have to be precisely a 1/4 inch. It's just I'm graduating the fullness or the gathers from right here all the way over to the side seam and not to the princess seam. I don't want to stop it there. So I copied my pattern, slashed, added some paper. It just didn't take very long at all. So now I'm going to cut one of these and one of these, one of these, one of these. One is the right front, one is the left front, and the side front as well. And then what I've got to do is cut the front facing, and they're going to be the same. They're still going to be like this, the original, because this will gather onto the front facing. So that's where the gathers take place. I do all these gathers, and how I keep these gathers in place is I sew it to the front facing and I finish off that front. Now I decided to do some top stitching just because on the cotton, I just really liked how it looked. It's not critical. It doesn't make a difference. It has a tendency on a knit to keep things more in place. You could do top stitching or you could do a little bit of understitching, either way. Okay, so I've got all my pieces cut. I've got the gathers I want in the front, and I'm ready to sew. And what I did is I did the back first, and then I did the princess seam front first, both sides, and then you do the shoulders. So I want to show you this photo of when you connect the shoulders, because remember that in the original pattern, my collar was my finishing. That's what finished the edge, but now the front is going to be finished because I've sewn the front and the front facing together, but what's not going to be finished is the back neck edge. So I'm going to show you this guide. This is from another pattern, don't worry about that, but whenever you're putting and sewing together a finished front to a non-finished back, the back seam allowance should just be 3/8 inch wider. You can see this little photo, you can go through this, and then you turn it under and you top stitch it down. And it looks beautiful. It sews beautifully. It's how Ready to Wear does it. It just looks beautiful. So I've got a finished front, I've got the finished back, I hemmed it, I set in my sleeves, and I love it. I just love it. And so do a wrap top. For this spring, it is just so trendy. It will go into summer, it will go into fall. You know, wrap top hasn't gone anywhere since the 70s, I think, when Diane von Furstenberg first did it. And pick a great fabric, pick something that's wonderfully soft that you just love, and once you love it, you'll love it. All right, so the wrap top, pattern 650, fabric again, can't remember for 2 minutes, is 53.71. It's 100% cotton. Baby blue is everywhere for spring. Robin egg blue, something like that. Anyway, happy sewing from Silhouette Patterns.